All right, we're gonna get started. Let me jump sides here. Hey, I'm Andrew, property manager at Edgewater Resort. We're here with Steve. Do you go by Steve or Steven?
Either one.
Okay, this is Steve. He's a sales manager at Watson's. And usually they do this presentation on site at Watson's, right?
We do.
And they're currently not doing it because of COVID or in between. Are you guys bringing it back soon?
We hopefully.
So in the future, you know, if you have cleaners, new property manager, new owners, we can invite them to come to this meeting. And I think we're going to have presentation, general presentation, and then questions at the end. And I have some questions myself. See if they have any questions. All right. You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
How's the audio? Okay.
Good.
Audio is the most important. So you guys let me know. I got headphones on, and you guys just let me know. And I'm gonna get, hey, do you guys want me to be closer? Would that be better? Everybody on Zoom?
I think you're very good right there.
All right, then let's get started.
Managers up over at Watson's. And wanted to come out today. We normally do classes weekly, bi-weekly at the store, and we've kind of had to postpone those for a while with everything going on. I still want to give a chance to talk about some things. Really, the goal when it comes to chemicals is to give you some options to make things as easy as possible. This might be a little bit different than a lot of videos you see online, because especially online, a lot of times they're trying to promote a product or a product line, and I'm not doing that. I'm going to keep things pretty general, and also try to find a way to use less chemicals and make it easy to take care of, whether it's you taking care of a guest or if you have somebody else coming in to do that. And when I speak of general things, it's because also I know that Watson's isn't always the most convenient place to buy your chemicals. Everybody come into Watson's and shop there, but also know that you're going to run out of stuff and you might have to get somewhere that's just closer or convenient at that time, and that's okay. I do try to always say, if you can't come to Watson's, try to go to a pool or spa store. When we talk about chemicals, there is a big difference in chemical quality, and when you're shopping online, sometimes you just don't know what you're getting. If you're getting a low quality chemical, that can end up making you have to use more chemicals and more money, more time, make it harder to take care of the hot tub. So when I do talk about chemicals, I'm gonna break it down to a few things. One, starting up the hot tub with new water, whether it is a new hot tub or you're just draining and starting over with brand new fresh water. And that's gonna be pretty quick and easy. Then we're gonna get into really the maintenance to keep that water clean and clear. So whether you're coming out, a guest is coming out, that when we open that hot tub lid, it's always clean, clear, it's safe to be in. That's where we're going to dive a little bit more. And that's where I would expect to have more questions. So Andrew will relay those questions to me. So definitely ask questions. Those are good. And then we'll talk about some more long-term maintenance, like draining and refilling, cleaning filters, things like that. So jumping in there, when we start up a new hot tub, it is pretty easy. The water's clear, it's sanitized coming out of the faucet or the hose. I check the water out of the tap here just to kind of see where we're at. I'm not sure if we're on the same water here as in Louisville, but usually, most cities keep the water pretty balanced. So there's not really a lot we have to do. I would recommend in this area and anywhere that's close to us, step one is, and really kind of a little tip here, when you do fill with new water, put the hose where the filter area is. You can just put it right down in the filter. That's going to prevent air getting trapped inside those plumbing lines, which can become an airlock, which can be a little tricky. It won't damage anything, but it can be a little tricky to get out of there. So when you filter the filter area, really no more effort for you, but that will prevent that from happening. So then we can just get right on the chemicals. This won't always be recommended, but in our area, there's something called metal remover. We've probably seen over time, like in a white bathtub, a toilet, where you get a little brown ring around the water line. That's from metals in the water. our water does have some metals in it, and especially a lighter color hot tub. Like I looked in this one, it is a lighter color. You can see that, you can start to see a brown ring. It will clean up easy enough just by wiping it off, but so you don't have to constantly repeat that process of cleaning the water line. This is a product, most products, a metal remover or a metal gun, you add the whole bottle just when you put brand new water in there. So that can be the first thing you do. And then that way you don't have to constantly go around cleaning that water line.
So that's something you do every time you drain or refill the water.
That's correct. Yeah. When you do all brand new water, shouldn't have to do it again until you completely drain and fill with all new water again. That one bottle will last you that whole time with that water.
Okay.
The next thing we want to do is important is double check the pH level. When we get into maintenance, I'll go a little bit more into pH and what that can cause. Andrew was giving me an example of somebody that had some problems with pH and some things that caused on the hot tub. But when we do start with new water, I checked out of the tap. It might be just slightly low coming out of the tap, but it's real close to being good. And most of the time with new water, it is. We do just want to double check that that's good. And when the easiest way to check your pH, whether you're doing it or somebody else is doing it, is a test strip. They do make little drop kits that you can put little drops in a tube and mix it up and get levels reading. And that's okay too. I personally don't have the patience for that. I've got a little thing of water here. You just dip the strip in, the colors change, and you have a little chart on the back you can compare. We're not trying to get an exact color on there. If you do that, you're going to drive yourself crazy. We want to get into that okay range. So we can tell if that color is really low, we can tell if it's really high, or we can tell if it's somewhere in the middle, or if it's really close, we're okay. We just don't want to get drastic swings one way or the other. And it, testing out here, again, might be slightly low. If that pH is low or if it's high, again, we'll get more into this on maintenance, but there's a pH plus and a pH minus product. Might be called pH plus, pH down, something like that. So in this case, with it being a little low, I would add a little bit of pH plus just to get started. We don't have to come back and really retest because we're so close to being in range. We're going to use really small increments of these chemicals. And that means like a tablespoon, a capful, not very much. And we put that in and we should be good to go. If you get a drastic swing where it's almost rock bottom or sky high, you can do maybe a couple doses, couple capfuls, couple tablespoons, and then come back a day or two later and see where it's kind of balanced itself out at. We don't want to have you checking your water every couple hours, every single day. That's going to be a headache and something that you all might not be able to do here.
Let's go into a few things. So with brands, is there brands that, like chemical wise, that are really bad online, and then there's brands that are good? You know what I'm saying?
The biggest thing that I would avoid,
like swindle kind of thing,
to shop online are kind of box stores, Walmart's, Targets. One brand that's really good that's on some online places is a brand called Leisure Time.
Leisure Time's not bad. Okay.
And you can buy that online, or a big pull and install online retailer. But try to avoid the Amazon brands, Targets, Walmart's, Home Depot, Lowe's.
They just don't have the quality of chemicals to balance it fast enough, or what? The acidity is not there. Fillers. Okay.
It's not as pure. When you really look at the fine print on all these labels, it will tell you what percentages of active chemicals are in there. I'm holding a thing of chlorine, which is 97%. I've seen as low as 40%.
Okay, so fillers that make it seem like it's a good product, like full, but it's half of it's fake. My other question, with the pH strips, do we have the same kind of thing? Is there pH strips that are like a bad brand or a good brand?
Kind of the same thing. I just kind of stick to your typical pull and spa stores.
Okay.
So that you have more consistent.
That makes sense.
I've got a question. If you put that in a container of water and pre-mix it, or do you just put that tablespoon straight into the tub?
Anything that we're dealing with in a hot tub, you can just put right into the hot tub.
Okay, so it doesn't accumulate at the bottom.
Correct. Yeah, you might see it kind of sink down to the bottom, especially if your hot tub is up to temperature. It's going to dissolve very quickly. We're not too far in here.
Yeah.
So they didn't miss too much. We were just talking about balancing the pH. Did I get your questions answered?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like brand wise, and just the big thing is they've dumbed down the quality of the chemicals and added fillers. So it'll look almost identical to these other brands. It's just like half of it is fake and half of it's the real thing.
Right. Well, that's where we want to be careful because it can, cause things just to be harder. It can cause it. It can make it difficult to keep clear water. It can make you have to add more chemicals than you need to, and we'll talk about kind of what that does later on and what that can kind of cause for you down the road. Adding too many chemicals. If we knock the pH out away, so we've added metal remover to get those metals so we don't get any staining. We've made sure the pH level is balanced. A lot of times it is. Might just have to have a small adjustment. Then it's time to add our sanitizer. And this is where you have some options on what to take care of. Any sanitizer I'm going to recommend is something that's EPA approved. That means it kills over 99% of bacteria. It's safe for you, it's safe for the environment. There's only a handful of things that are EPA approved, and that's going to be what most places are going to have to offer. And then on how to add those, I'm going to talk about those a little bit more with weekly upkeep and how you get those started. But once you add your sanitizer, that's when everything's good to go and you're ready to use it. So if we really simplify that down, even if I had to get this hot tub started, I could do it in a matter of a couple minutes at most. The water full, add my metal remover, dip the strip, see where the pH is. Even if I need to add a capful, I can. And then add my sanitizer, whichever one we would choose. And then I'm good to go. Water gets up to temperature, you can get in your hot tub. Startup is really pretty easy because we're starting with new, fresh, clean water. But we want to keep that water that way. And that's where we have to keep up with. And kind of going backwards a little bit back to pH. We want to keep that pH balance. And what we recommend is once a week checking that pH. Now, some people will do it, recommend every 10 days. Some will recommend every other week. 7 to 10 days is the general thing that you're going to hear on people recommending. The reason we say once a week is because there can be more of a routine with that. If somebody's out here on Saturdays, or if you're doing it, you're off work on Saturday, Sunday, and you have that same day every week, you're checking your levels, then you don't forget. If I was trying to do it every 10 days, I would get mixed up on which days and where I'm at. So even at home, mine's Friday. Every Friday, I check my pH. And then same way as before, if we need to adjust, we have pH up and pH down. This is probably the most overlooked part of taking care of a hot tub is that pH level. You'd be surprised in the amount of customers I get coming into my store that say they've taken care of a pool or hot tub for 30 years and they never check their pH. And you can keep a clear hot tub with the pH out of either really high or really low. But what happens if the pH is really low, the water is acidic. And that causes a lot of corrosion. What you typically first see it on a hot tub is things like your head pillows. You hear about jets popping out. The underside of the cover. A lot of that is from the corrosive factor of that pH being really low over a long period of time. We don't need to worry about a couple days, a couple weeks, even a month. But if we've had a hot tub for years and we're never checking that pH level, you will get some side effects like that from that. And then that's what we visually see. But then you have underneath the hot tub with the plumbing and the heater and the pumps, and all that is corrosive on those things as well. So we don't want that pH to go all the way to the bottom and stay there. We want to check it occasionally. That's why we say once a week, and to make little adjustments if we need to. If it gets high, the water starts to scale. So which will be a buildup of almost like white dark calcium buildup that you can see on the shelf. That will also build up on your heater. That's probably the #1 cause of heater failures. And it can make the water cloudy because it is kind of like a white chalky substance that builds up. Now that's not to scare you. It would take a long time of not checking that stuff to get to those levels where you would have those side effects, but it can. If you went 6 months with it, you might start to see some of those side effects starting. It would take a longer time to then have serious side effects where you're having.
All right, we got a question. So with our hot tubs, they're used, especially in the summers, 5-6 days a week,
Mhm.
or more. Like they're constantly in use. Do we have to check them more then because there's so much human interaction?
You know, typically what I would recommend, and we're kind of in a unique situation where these tubs can be used differently from week to week. People, if we're renting them out, different people and different size groups of people are coming in here. When it's at a home, you've pretty much got the same amount of people and the same routine on week to week. And so this is a little bit unique situation. Typically what I would tell somebody at home, and I think it would kind of apply here, if we have a normal maintenance and then there's an unusual party, and I don't know how this goes here, if you know always how many people are in the places and things like that, but say it's normally 2-3 people, and then all of a sudden you had 6-7 people all in the same hot tub, that might be a reason to then check that again.
Okay, so if there's more people, does it push the pH level up or down?
It can always be different. So anytime something comes into the water, and what you bring into the water can cause it to go one way or the other. It can be from like oils, lotions, hair products, makeups, things that are just on your body. Your body has a pH level. You're sweaty, and then you're running around, then you get in there. If they've been in the water with the same bathing suits down at the lake, and then they're coming in here, that's bringing new stuff in there. And so all those things can have different pH levels at different times. So you can see it happen both ways.
Okay.
And so there's really not a way to answer that, but you can have a more drastic swing with a lot of people. And we do have some unique things in this, with the lake being there and things like that, and different size people coming in. But if it was a large amount of people in the hot tub, that might be a reason to just give it an extra check if it's possible. But that is why pH is important. So we do want to kind of keep an eye on that. And it's more important with some sanitizer. So that would be really the next thing. Unless somebody has a question again on pH, I try not to get too technical. I try to keep it a little more simple, but ultimately the goal is it's easy to check pH, but we do want to keep up with it. So then the next thing is sanitizer, and that's where we have a lot of options, or not a lot, but a handful of options. And each one kind of works, and what is required of you is a little bit different. The most common thing in hot tubs is chlorine as a sanitizer. Probably the least expensive way to maintain a hot tub is chlorine. A lot of people know chlorine as chlorine tablets. Chlorine tablets are not designed for a hot tub. So that's one thing you want to be careful about too out shopping. A chlorine tablet is a different type of chlorine than a powder or a granulated chlorine, and it is not good for hot tubs. There's essentially too much chlorine in that, and it's made for a pool with a lot colder water. Probably didn't say that perfectly, but lower temperatures, and so if you put it in a hot tub, it's going to dissolve very quickly and has a lot more chlorine content to it. So what's always recommended for hot tubs is a granular chlorine. And another reason you want to watch that, you read your owner's manual. Most hot tub major brands, like this is a Koozie, not even a brand I sell, but a great hot tub, and it is in the owner's manual that it would void the warranty using chlorine tablets.
Oh.
So chlorine for a hot tub is granulated chlorine, almost a powder, but granulated down. And the way this is applied is you're just physically adding it similar to the pH, a tablespoon, a capful at a time. We would do that same at startup. So when we talk about startup, metal remover, check the pH, you put a capful or a tablespoon of granular chlorine in there, and then you're good to go. What's typically recommended on how often to add this is most times that you get out of using the hot tub. So if it was a daily use, you would add a little bit at least most days that you get out of it. Keep doing that to kill bacteria and be ready for the next time. Granular chlorine will not keep a constant level of chlorine. It's going to go up, it's going to kill the bacteria, and it's going to come back down. So then by the time you use it, the tub is clean. If there's not a lot of chlorine left over, you use it, you add more. You're going to have a kind of a yo-yo effect of chlorine.
The yo-yo is a good thing, right? Because I don't want to be in there when there's a peak of fluorine, right?
Right. Yeah, and that is a good thing about it. Usually by the time you come back in there, and you would kind of do it if you're using it at noon, and you might use it in the evening again. Wait till the evening and then add it. Don't add it after then. But at the end of the day, you would add like a capful of chlorine. I can can see where that could be a little more difficult here.
Oh yeah.
Guests coming in and out. Because they're likely not to add it. But if they're just here, for a weekend, might be after they're done. If somebody's staying here for a whole week, it would be hard to get through that whole week using the tub every day and not adding more chlorine in the meantime. But chlorine's not our only option. Then the next most common thing would be bromine. Bromine does come in a tablet for hot tubs, and then it would go in a little floater like this. They're real small tablets. They're only about 1 inch in diameter. You fill this up with it. You can adjust on there kind of how much it's letting out, and that would just float around in the hot tub. So the advantage there is that bromine in a hot tub can keep a constant level of sanitation where you're not having to constantly go back out and change it. So this could be a good bromine might be a good option for some people here, especially on long stays where they need to stay. The tricky thing about bromine is if it stays good, it's good. If it gets really low or really high, it can be a little trickier to get that back regulated. More so if it gets low. If we go back to startup, how you would start up bromine, still do your metal remover, you'd still do your pH. And then there's another chemical that comes in a powder called sodium bromide. That gives you a boost of bromine. These bromine tablets are going to dissolve very slowly. So with new water, it's going to take a while for that bromine level to get up to where it needs to be. We have that sodium bromide, it gives us a boost. The tablets will maintain that, but at the same time, if we drop back down after like a heavy use, big family, a bunch of friends all in the same hot tub, we might need to add that sodium bromide again. So it is adding another chemical that we need to keep up with. But same the way I test the pH, just dipping the strip, that's the same way you would test your bromine or even chlorine.
All right, let's take a step back just to verify a few things. So if I'm using chlorine, only powder, no tablets. Tablets avoid the warranty. It could ruin the hot tub. And how, like, let's say I throw in a cap of chlorine. I have a high, is it good to go? Like, in like foggy water, it's going to clear the foggy water in like 24 hours, or what's the timeline when I put in chlorine to clean it?
Usually, so chlorine, it's going to start acting and killing bacteria right away. If we can keep up with it, then we should be able to avoid the cloudy water. If we do get to the cloudy water, and there's several things that can cause cloudy water. I mentioned that the high pH levels can cause cloudy water. Not having enough sanitizer like we're talking about now can cause cloudy water. So one, it's kind of identifying what is causing the cloudiness. If it was chlorine, I would say probably at least overnight to get back to clear.
Okay. Then with bromine, it's a slower start process, so you have to add that second chemical. So I put in the little floater with bromine, that's normal. But if I have clean water, I need to add that second chemical if I'm using bromine to like speed up the process, would you say? And what's the name of that chemical again? Sodium bromide. Okay.
You shock. You can. So that will be kind of the next step on sanitizing. Both of those we will want to use shock with.
Does shock works for bromine and chlorine?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna mention a couple more things, and one thing that you have on sanitizing as some other options, and then we'll talk. The next thing we'll get into shock and why we need to do that. So whether we're using chlorine or bromine, one thing that can make life really easy and that's been around a long time are minerals for hot tub. Using minerals to help sanitize. Traditional way that's been around a long time is a little stick like this. All natural minerals. They use some silver, limestone, and a few other things in there. And as it sets in the water, and it's in the water, it does kill bacteria. So this is a second thing other than chlorine or bromine killing bacteria. So when you have this, one, it makes it easier because there's something always in the water killing bacteria, keeping the water clean. But it also allows you then to run your straw on a lower chlorine or bromine level. So one, if we're not here, we can't add more. You still have something. If the levels do start to come down, it's still okay. And even with those low levels using this, that's still an EPA approved sanitizer. Just for instance, without getting too number crazy, when you look at a test strip, chlorine will say it needs to be between 3 and 5 in a hot tub. I can run that chlorine level at 0.5 to 1 when I have these minerals in there. You don't have to do anything with it once it's in there. Most people will just put this in the filter area right next to the filter. There's not a wrong or right place to put it in there. And it just sits in there. It'll last for 4 months. And then when it's done, you just toss it, put a new one.
Do you do that with bromine as well, or just chlorine?
You do bromine as well, you can use this.
And what's that called, and where would you buy it?
So they're either called mineral cartridges or ionizers. Every pool or hot tub store will carry these. There's a few brands that do them. The one I'm holding is called the Nature 2 Stick. There's one called Full Frog or Spa Frog, exact same thing. And any pool or hot tub place will have these. They've been around a long time. They're very effective. I used one for a very long time in my hot tub. I actually use something else that you have now. When this kind of goes into that. But I use these for a long time. What I liked about it is if life got busy, and that could apply here too, where somebody's not out there or you forget about it. Because me, if I'm not using the hot tub, I'm not thinking about it. So if life got busy, I couldn't use the hot tub. I didn't put chemicals in it. There was still always something in there sanitizing. So this could be a really great option, for a situation like this where somebody's not out here all the time able to add chemicals. Could make things a lot easier and make sure that water stays clean and clear. And again, you can use it with bromine or chlorine.
Yeah, let me verify one thing. So with the sanitizing, does that also keep the pH level middle, or is it just cleaning it?
Really just cleaning it.
Okay, so but it's not really affecting the pH level, which is fine. I just want to understand the difference.
Now going into the next most popular, this is probably the most popular thing that's out now. It came out about 2 years ago. It's the first thing in hot tub chemicals that's gotten an EPA approval in like 30 years. And it's at ease. I just brought the sample, so I didn't have to open up boxes that we had at the store. This is the first generation of at ease. It's a little ball that floats in the water. And what it does, the blue part is the same minerals that are in here. So that's not new technology by any means. It's been around a long time. But this one's just going to float in the hot tub by itself. The second part is chlorine. It's a newer type of chlorine that they developed and had patented, and it's called Smart Chlor. It actually self-regulates when it's needed. When bacteria gets up, there's always this bank of chlorine that won't even show up on a test strip. It almost activates itself when it needs to, kills the bacteria, and then goes back to dormant. It's just really, it's called at ease because it's really easy. This bottom half is chlorine, the top half is minerals, and it just floats in the water. With normal chlorine, like I said, we're adding it almost every time we get out of it. The tub's being used several times a week. You're adding chlorine several times a week. This one cartridge usually lasts 3 to 4 weeks. And I would say it's really made to last 4 on most size hot tubs. But still, we might get some heavy use here. 3 to 4 weeks. The same cartridge will last where you don't have to do anything to the chlorine for that long of a time.
So we would be more, so the chlorine would be stable, but we'd probably still have to sanitize it.
That is your sanitizer.
That is the
So
sanitizer.
the minerals and the chlorine together would be your sanitizer.
Okay.
So it really takes out a lot of the weekly things that you will have to do. And you mentioned it too. It kind of floats this way. It might be a little crooked, and that's fine. But when it's completely empty, it's going to flip upside down to let you know that it needs to be.
On the bottom of that, Steve, there's a little.
Well, does somebody have a question?
1 to 5.
Jim does.
Does it matter if it's at 1 or 5?
All right, what's your
For
question, Jim?
lasting 3 to 4 weeks.
It can. Most people are going to run it. I think it's 1 to 4. Yeah, and most people are going to run about on 3. And you should still get.
So our hot tubs out here should be about a 30.
So that's the product is Frog at Ease, and
this is available at most pool and spa stores, and
Okay.
it is available.
now with that we'd still have to check pH levels, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But that is the main thing that we need to still do on a weekly basis. The technology that's in that. We should be doing that no matter what chemical system we're using. But if you're somebody who lets the pH stay low all the time, this isn't going to regulate how it's supposed to, and then you can have some issues with keeping the water from getting cloudy.
Okay.
Easy.
with that product. Really, all I have to do then is deal with pH, unless it's
For the most part,
refill.
yeah. Yeah, I'll get into some things that some people have to use and some don't. But the things that are necessary to use, pH and then sanitizer, this isn't doing pH, but it's doing everything else when it comes to sanitizing. And when that does need to change, that yellow one lasts about 4 months. This blue mineral lasts 4 months. And then these last about 3 to 4
Hey, I'll
weeks.
pause it. Okay, we got a question about the IDs. I'm waiting for him. 1 second. Go ahead.
Does it require an adjustment on the sanitizer, like a lot of the floaters? We've got a floater for bromine that you adjust like in the season or heavy use. Does this somehow self-regulate that, or do you have to mess with the setting on it?
So with the question is around if you can adjust how much you put out. Like with bromine tablets, if there's heavy use, you can adjust how much bromine is coming out. Does the Addies have that type of adjustment?
It does. So yeah, on the bromine, you're kind of using the floater here. And I can turn this bottom piece.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see the slats and it will adjust how much coming out. Same thing on the bottom here. You have a 1 through 4.
Has a 1 through 4 adjustment.
Most hot tubs, and I usually tell people to start on a 3. You'd have to have a really unusually large hot tub most of the time to go to a 4, or small hot tubs that might be like a 2 or 3 person. You might be able to come down a little bit. Even a tub like this size here, which is probably a more common mid-sized tub, you'd probably be a 3. That's probably where I would tell you to start.
Okay, thank you.
You can adjust it. Now, when you check chlorine levels with this, it comes with its own set of test strips. If you use a normal set of test strips, you're not going to get normal chlorine reading. It's always going to look low.
Okay, so the problem you could say, or the drawback with Addies, is you have to have specialized test strips to find that chemical because it's different than normal chlorine.
When you buy the mineral, it actually comes a mineral and 1 chlorine in a pack, and it has test strips in there. There's enough to test your water for once a week for 4 months.
Once a week for 4 months. Okay.
So if you're doing more than that, then you'd have to buy some extra test strips. But a pack of test strips that have like 50 test strips in there, I think it's $9.99.
Okay.
Most places, so it's not a huge expense.
All right. Jim, did we answer your question?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. We're good. We answered it.
And then one question too. We actually have somebody here that is already using Addies and asked and said they didn't know you had to change the minerals out in 4 months. That is pretty much an average. I would still try to change it out in 4 months. No matter what mineral you have, you're always going to hear stuff in it. I don't know if you all can hear that rattle. You're always going to have stuff in there. That doesn't mean it's still good. Basically what will happen is a lot of the stuff in there will get a kind of coating, or the coating that's on it will come off, and then they're just not as effective. But I would still plan on changing that about every 4 months.
So for us, 3 months, just because of excessive use, we still get 4 months with the minerals. Okay.
So this is a great option to make things really easy. A few brands of hot tubs have their own kind of partnership with Addies. And those might look a little bit different. There's one that has little tubes that can go in line. A couple brands have something that's set in the filter area, but works exactly the same way. This one floats in the hot tub, which a lot of people like because it's a visual. When it's empty, it flips over.
Okay.
And so the only thing that I haven't mentioned that is truly an EPA approved sanitizer is Aqua Spa. We don't sell it at Watson's. It is EPA approved, which means it's good.
Aqua Spa?
It's a hydrogen peroxide product that will sanitize water. It is probably the most expensive way to take care of your hot tub. We don't sell it, so I can't give you a ton of information on that. But that is something that is available. Addies is the most popular thing now. Regular chlorine is probably historically the most popular. And then, bromine is sometimes a good option when you can't be at the hot tub all the time.
Great.
There's not a right or wrong product to use there, as long as we're using a sanitizer. The last thing that you have to do to any hot tub, we've talked about pH, talked about sanitizer. The only regular maintenance thing that you can't get away from is, and you mentioned it, shock. We have to shock a hot tub. What shock? That's just what it's called. What it does, as these sanitizing products kill bacteria, they leave some stuff behind, both from the chemical and both from the bacteria that it's killing. Shock breaks that stuff down. They call it organic waste. but it really breaks it down to get that out of the water. If you don't do that, you will get cloudy water, and you can get some odors that come along with it. We've probably all been in a hotel and we walk in and you can smell the pool and the hot tub from the lobby. That is not because they've added too many chemicals in there. As those sanitizers are working, they're probably using chlorine. It burns off, and that gas, it produces something called chloramines, and that's what you smell. And that's because those are such heavy use items. That's why you get those smells. When you use the shock product, it's going to break those things down so that doesn't happen. So that's an important product. How often do we use it? Bromine and regular chlorine that we're sprinkling it in, I would say once a week. And some people will say 7 to 10 days. But if we can kind of get that routine where we're checking the pH and we're adding shock the same day, we're going to keep up with it. Even with heavy use, if we've got our sanitizer in there throughout the week. If we do this once a week, just a capful, tablespoon again, we will keep up with it. With at ease, you do it once a month. Typically, what I say is just whenever you change your chlorine out, at the time. That way, you kind of keep up with it. That way, you don't have to. If this only lasts 3 weeks, and then you go out the following week to shock, just do it all at the same time. The last 3 weeks, and just shock whenever you change the chlorine out to keep up with it.
So more or less, you're saying whenever you add chlorine or bromine, add some shock.
Just once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah, once a week, add the shock. If you're using the more traditional products, even if you're using a mineral stick like this with chlorine or bromine, still once a week. The only thing that gets you away from that would be this at ease product, where you can do, either when you change the chlorine out or about once a month.
So can
Right.
you basically just buy that every month, put a cup of that in there, change that chlorine tablet out, and roll on with it?
That was I don't know if you can hear him, but basically Blake asked, can you just buy the Addies, right? And basically just once a month switch out the chlorine. When it flips over, you're good to go. Now let's say Blake has like 24 guests in 3 days. Like is that going to kill the chlorine amount? Like, is it going to drain it faster? Probably.
So, and my brain was kind of going here too. If not so much the amount of people, but maybe what they're bringing in with them. Again, maybe they're down at the lake.
And that's what we don't
know
know.
what's on them, and they get in there.
They bring their dog.
And then,
Yes,
and then all of a sudden the water is starting to turn color, like cloudy. The nice thing about this being a chlorine product is if you did have granular chlorine, you could just give it some extra doses of granular chlorine.
Even though it's not smart chlorine, like they play well together. Okay, good.
So it is still a chlorine-based product. It's just basically, I don't want to get too technical and get confused. There's 2 levels you can check on chlorine. Normally, they're together. With the smart chlor, they're opposite, and then they come together when they need to. So it's still a chlorine product.
Okay.
So that's the nice thing about chlorine products is if you need more, you just can add more. So if there was a situation where, I don't know, like you said, a dog or kids rolling around in the dirt and then getting in the hot tub and we need some extra sanitation, you could just add more chlorine. But if people are normally getting in there, relatively clean, this would take care of it.
Now with the bromine, we would use that other chemical that's faster, right?
Which can be a little bit harder to stabilize.
Okay.
Doing that than what a chlorine product does.
Okay, great.
Those are the 3 things. So again, kind of simplify. I know we've talked about a lot. We've talked about some options, but try to simplify this to what you have to do to your hot tub to maintain it. Keep the pH level balanced, sanitize, and shock. Those 3 things. We got some options on how we do that. But if we do those 3 things, that will keep a safe, clean, clear hot tub. And then we're going to talk about, and I did say, this ideally would do everything you need to. I'm going to talk about a few things. What I brought out here, this is mainly what is in our startup kit that we give people when they get a new hot tub. There are some things that some people may have to use, and then there's some things that you may have to use occasionally. This gets a little bit into troubleshooting stuff too, but just some common things that other people might recommend. You might see online, you might see in other videos, YouTube, if you went to another pool or spa store, that somebody might recommend. So at least you're familiar with it. And a couple of these things, and what they do. One is scale preventer. You do get this recommended. I mentioned things like high pH level can create some scale, which is kind of a white chalky buildup that you can see on the hot tub. If it's a dark color inside, we talked about staining on light colors, but if it's a dark color inside, you might actually, so you see some water spots on the top where the water got up there, it dried, it left some like white chalky stuff behind. That just wipes up, but that is scale that has built up in the hot tub water. And the worst place that can build up is on the heater. It can also build up in some jets. If you have jets that spin when they're on, those bearings and things that are in there can get enough on there where they stop spinning. If enough gets on the heater, it could burn the heater up. Again, these are drastic situations of not balancing water for a long time. But if you wanted to take that extra step to prevent that, or if you're seeing some of it build up on the top of the hot tub, you can add a couple ounces of a scale preventer. Almost every line or brand of chemicals will have.
I had a question that I'm a little late on and we need to go back to. So one of the problems we have with Addie's products and the bromine floaters is guests will just kind of throw them out of the hot tub.
Yeah.
If it's out, let's say it's out for 12 hours, because that's how long the guest is there. How is that going to affect the hot tub?
So, and it could and it couldn't. I mean, it's possible that there's still enough sanitizer left over that there's some to get in there. And we're talking just about 12 hours isn't a terribly long time. We're talking days, you probably notice something. If they're throwing it out and there is a lot of people in there, that sanitizer almost still needs to be in there and adding, because it's anytime you get in the hot tub, it's now playing catch up to get rid of all that stuff you brought in it. So it could. I can't say that it wouldn't. I would say in most situations it wouldn't be a problem when we're talking like 12-ish hours.
I think maybe the question, I might be wrong, was let's say it's out for 3 days. And obviously the water's going to be messed up. Is the Addie's product going to be messed up when you put it back in? Or do you need to go buy a new?
No, you could put it right back in there.
So the question that was asked is, what if it's out for 3 days? The Addie's product will be just fine. It just needs to be put back in.
Is okay. We just need to get it back in there. And again, I would probably add a couple scoops of regular chlorine just so you've establish a level right away and get things back to normal. I will say with the Addie's product, because that is what I've switched to, and with most customers, if you do get cloudy water and you put this in there and you add a scoop or two of regular chlorine, almost always by the next day it's back to normal.
Okay, so normally if I'm gonna sanitize with chlorine like one day and it should be good, what about with bromine? Let's say I'm cloudy with bromine, and what's the timeline for cleaning it there?
It can be a little bit longer because again, it's a little bit harder to stabilize. Those tablets are dissolving very slow, to where with chlorine I can just keep dumping chlorine in there and adding more and more chlorine. With bromine, those tablets are only going to dissolve so fast. So then we're dependent on sodium bromide to get that level up. So it can be a little bit trickier to get it back to normal.
So you really absolutely need sodium bromide if you're using bromine. You have to, okay, which is fine. Just understanding that.
And one thing I'll mention too, I haven't mentioned before, don't mix the sanitizing products. If you're using chlorine and you want to switch to bromine, if you're using bromine and you want to switch to chlorine, you either need to let the sanitation level drop down to 0, or better to just start with new water.
Okay.
What causes the hot tub to look like this soap in it? Soap and water.
So that's going to be, it's normal to get some bubbles when you're in it because those pumps and those jets are bringing air in along with it. So you're going to get some bubbles just with that moving water. Now, when we really start getting like foam where it's building up, that's very common. That's going to be from detergents. If you're coming off of bathing suits, again, hair products, makeups, lotions, even shampoo that you didn't rinse out all the way down to the hot tub. And that's going to cause that. Pretty easy to get rid of. That's kind of in this next section too. Usually this one says defoamer. Might say foam down. Again, almost every chemical line will have that. A little drop of this, don't use a lot. A little drop of this will clear out those bubbles while you're using the hot tub. But keep in mind, for you all that actually have to maintain it, all that is still collecting in your filters, and we will need to clean the filter. I'm going to talk more about cleaning filters. But if you are getting a foam, problem or a lot of foam, a lot of bubbles in the hot tub, this will take them out while you're using it, but they'll end up coming back because that detergent is still collected in the filters. Some people say make sure you shower every time before you get in the hot tub. I don't do that. That's a lot of work, and guests aren't going to do that. So that's kind of unrealistic for a lot of people. But this will get it out. If you use too much
Andrew,
of this,
I have a
you get
question.
new type of bubble. It's going to be really clear and really big.
Okay, one second. I have another question. One second. Yeah, I'm ready when you are. What's your question?
My question is about the foaming. Is that related to having a low pH? Is that anything to do with that?
Yeah,
the
good
foaming?
question. So with the foaming, is it related to pH? Does it adjust the height of the pH or lower the pH, or is it more?
It won't adjust the pH itself. If you do the way it kind of does balance into the water, if your pH is really low, you can get more bubbles. The low pH itself isn't causing the bubbles, but it can make them more prominent.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Yes, and then so this is the problem I'm having related to that. Then I'm trying to regulate the bromine, going on the bromine.
Deregulating the bromine. Got it.
Always having high levels of bromine, will that cause the foaming? Or what's the best way to regulate
high
the
levels
bromine?
of bromine. Is that causing foaming?
The high levels of bromine shouldn't.
So it sounds like she needs like shock or defoamer.
Yeah, I mean, any shock's not really going to break down like foaming. If it's foaming, it's something detergent based is in the hot tub. And that's usually just coming off of your.
And what if she's a little high on bromine? Is that going to be too high of a pH level? Can break parts?
Yeah, so, I mean, the bromine itself isn't really going to affect your pH, and the pH itself isn't going to affect your level of bromine.
Gotcha.
Ideally, you do want to get that bromine level down for people using the hot tub, just because somebody's going to, complain that, the levels were high and they got a rash or they're itchy or something like that. Everybody's sensitivity level is different on that. But we do want to try to get that down. So if you're using like a floater, try to crank that down a little bit. Or if you can be out here for a period of time, take it out, let it come down, put it back in, and try to get that level down.
Did that answer your question, Daniela?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good job.
So we talked about the foamer. So it's common to have to use that at some point. So it's not a bad thing to have on hand, but it's not something you're probably gonna have to use every week either. But it's a good one to have on hand. A couple others. One is natural enzyme. I'll just grab this one because I mentioned things coming from like oils, lotions, products that can cause some foaming, but it can also create kind of like an oily substance on the top of the water. It can also cause almost like a scum, like kind of brown bubble scum on the edges of the hot tub. And this is a pretty common thing. My wife and daughter, we get it at home. An enzyme product, there's a lot of them out there. Again, most product lines have it. It's nothing specific to what we have. But an enzyme product will break down oils and lotions and those type of products so that you don't get anything visible in the water, but it will also break them down out of the filters. So we'll keep your filters cleaner too. I do use this weekly. Not everybody needs to. So it's not something I'm going to give to every single person that comes in our store.
So that cleans the filters? Is that what you're getting at?
It breaks down the oils and lotions and things that collect in the filter.
Oh, so it would in theory, it could preserve the filter longer.
It can, yes.
That might not be a bad thing.
And which I'll kind of get into the filters too more. But this is a good product. I did bring one because what I use, I know I said I wasn't going to pitch a lot of products, but you don't have to. Any product line would have it. I use the Spa Perfect because they were the first ones to do it. This stuff works really good. Has a good smell to it and keeps that stuff out of it. That's the one I personally use. But any enzyme product will help you if that's a problem that you're having.
Hey, Andrew, can I ask another question?
That you may have to use occasionally is
1 second. We got another question. So yeah, go ahead, Jim.
And I'm sorry for interrupting, but I got to jump on a work call. How often should you change the water? Like more guests change it or if you start seeing a lot of foaming, it's not knocking down, or what? Is there any kind of guidelines for how
So,
often you should dump the water?
let me know if this is the question. So how do you know when you should change the water and how often should you change the water? Is that more or less your question, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so how often should you change the water and how do you know?
That's gonna be the last thing I hit when we kind of get to
Okay.
more long-term.
Jim, I'm gonna have a recording of this. He has to go.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna send you the recording. I'm gonna send everybody the recording. He's gonna hit it at
Okay.
the end.
Sounds good. Thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Just because I do want to hit a couple of these, so it makes a little bit more sense on why we need to change that water.
Okay.
So this last product is a clarifier. Sometimes the water, there's no way for even, at a polar spa store to test and tell you what's making your water cloudy. Process of elimination. It could be the pH level. It could have been the sanitizer. It could be that you had it shocked recently. It can also just be from dirt particles that have gotten in the water. Those aren't going to just disappear. So they can collect in the water and that will make the water cloudy. And it can take a while. Most hot tubs, this body of water, there's just a lot of times one little filter. Some hot tubs have two filters, but most just have one or two filters over in a corner. It can take a long time for all those dirt particles to make their way to that filter. What this will do is kind of clump all those particles together so they're a lot larger, so they make it to the filter quicker to clean up that cloudy water. This is usually the last thing. If somebody comes to me and says they have cloudy water, we want to make sure the pH is right. We want to make sure that we've sanitized like we need to. We want to make sure we've shocked the water. If it is just that, a lot of dirt particles, again, out here, kids could be running around in the dirt. You mentioned the dog, they jump in the hot tub, dirt particles get in there. Then this would be something that you could add to clean that up. If things get too bad on a hot tub, we're not talking about a lot of water. We don't want to spend days. You might not be out here for days. If it's too much, it's always easy enough just to drain and refill. But if we want to try, I usually personally, I'm not going to spend more than 2 days trying to get water right. Most of the time, you can add your products, and by the next morning, it's good to go. I might try one more time to add something else like this clarifier. But if it's giving me too much trouble, or if I've got actual discoloration, which could happen if people are in the lake, who knows what's on their swimsuits? They get in here with the same swimsuits. If it's actually discolored, like turning green or brown, I'm going to drain and refill. You're just going to have to add too much chemical and spend too much time trying to get that.
So your measurement is 2 24-hour cycles. You do one, you put in the chemicals. If it's good, you go for it. If it's not good, you do another set of 24 hours of putting in chemicals to see if you get it. Then if you can't get it within that 2-day period, you drain.
Yeah, and that's me. Hot tub like this is a decent size. You're probably 300 gallons. Not going to cost that much. 300 gallons of water does not cost that much versus the time it would take and the cost of chemicals to constantly treat this thing for days and days. So I could see that happening here, even more so than at just somebody's normal home. But this is kind of a second try. The first things we talk about, pH shock, sanitizers are the most important. But this is kind of like a backup. If we want to try one more thing to try to get cloudy water back to clear, then you can try a clarifier. Any questions on that?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So then the last thing is more long-term maintenance. And I know I was close there, but on draining and refilling water, there's no regular maintenance you have to do on anything on the mechanical part of the hot tub, pumps, heaters. There's nothing long that you have to do or have somebody come out to regularly do there. It's really just all taking care of the water that's in there and the filter. So with the filter, even before we drain and refill, the next most common thing you're going to have to do is clean that filter. Normal filter cleaning is taking out and spraying it off with a hose. But there's not a right or wrong answer to how often we need to do that. But the more you do it, the longer that filter is going to last. Most people at home get a couple years out of the filter.
Is that just the plastic thing in the corner?
That's the circular, dang it, cylinder.
Kind of paper.
Yeah, cylinder cone.
Fiber, with plastic on the top and bottom. Every hot tub's a little bit different on where that filter is and the size.
I don't even think I have one.
You got one somewhere.
You should
there's
have
a-
one.
There's a hard plastic thing there, but
Twist it off
that
and
probably
then-
unscrews and then the filter is down.
Yeah, we might need to clean that filter with you. We'll take a look after this. No, you're good. You should interrupt. You need this kind of stuff. Go ahead.
That's important. So now if it gets too bad, and that's good because you're not there yet, almost every hot tub has a sensor on it of some sort, which is going to give you some type of error code because there's not enough water moving through the filter into the pumps and heaters. And that means your filter's clogged. You're going to get some type of error code. The majority of service calls that we get at the store, people calling our service department and saying their hot tub's not working right or there's an error code on it, it's almost always a dirty filter. You can almost always prevent you paying a service call just by you taking and cleaning your filters. That is a common thing. Some people clean their filters every week. I don't do that. Maybe I'm once a month. But I work every day at a store where I have all the stuff to get if I need it. But the more often you clean a filter, the longer it lasts. If it does get too bad, the tub will let you know. But normal cleaning is just taking out, spraying it off with a hose, running it under a faucet outside. It's nothing too crazy because it's collecting all those dirt particles and things that are in the tub and you're just rinsing it off. But they are fiber, and over time, that fiber will kind of wear down, restrict water flow through it. So same thing, you'll need to clean it. So same thing, say you got an error code, you cleaned your filter. Week later, you're getting that same error code. You take the filter out, you clean it, it's good. You don't want to do that every week. So
You said it's fibrine. Is that slang for like pieces of? It's a fiber. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the same idea.
But it is cleanable. If it does get real dirty, say you had guests over and I don't know, they spilled stuff in the hot tub or whatever it was. It was a case where it was pretty nasty and we probably want to drain and refill it. There are solutions like this one called filter clean, cartridge cleaner, something like that. Usually something you could put in a bucket like I've got here, soak it overnight, next day, spray it off with a hose, or even if you can't be here all day, soak it for a few hours, spray it off with a hose real good, and then put back in. So they're kind of like a deep clean. They'll keep you from having to buy a filter. Filters sometimes aren't terribly expensive. They might be $20 up to $80 on bigger ones, but still not something you want to have to do all the time. So if we can clean it with a $5 chemical, make it last a lot longer, there is an option there. But at some point, we are going to have to drain this water. And it can be for a few reasons. It could be it just got real nasty. You don't want to deal with it, trying to get it back to normal. But at the same time, all these chemicals we've talked about, every time we add one, it's going to raise a level called total dissolved solids, or TDS. You don't need to check for that at home. But that average, that level will get so high that chemicals essentially aren't effective anymore. So it doesn't matter if it's chlorine, bromine, addies, no matter what you add, there's been too many dissolved solids in that hot tub and those chemicals just don't work like they're supposed to. They average that at 3 to 4 months.
So let's take a step back. So you're saying I've been adding chemicals for the last 3 months, right? And because there's so much part of chemical per amount of water that it no longer works. I could add half a cup of chlorine and it's not going to work anymore, more or less, just because of the buildup of that. Okay. I'm just making sure I'm on the same page.
Yeah. And we don't deal with this too much in pools because pools are open for, the big part of the year. You're getting a lot more evaporation. Here, when we're not using it, the cover's on it. So that same body, the majority of that same body of water you first filled it with stays in there most of the time. So it does happen on hot tubs. Average 3 to 4 months. If you can plan on draining and refilling every 3 to 4 months, if you're out here, even if it's, like today, it's been freezing, but we know we've hit that 4 months, and now all of a sudden we got some nice days. This might be a good time to do it before it gets really cold again. Because we don't want to do it in snow and ice. That's not fun. So there will be a point, 3 to 4 months. Some people can get a little longer. A worst case, if you had a lot of big groups out here time and time again for a couple months, you could go a little bit shorter out here. But at normal homes, normal situations, we usually recommend 4 months is to plan on draining and refilling it.
Does the pH strips that you use, can they check for that part per whatever of solids? Is there a measurement for that?
It takes special testing equipment for that. You would have to take it somewhere. You would have to take a sample of water somewhere.
Oh, okay. We're not going to worry about that. Okay.
And I would tell you, no, if you're spending that much time, just drain it and refill it. Again,
Okay.
I mean, you're going to spend more in gas driving somewhere than it would just to drain and refill your hot tub. I know it takes a little bit of time there, but especially if you've hit that 3 to 4 months and you're having problems,
Okay.
you just want to drain and refill. I can tell you at Watson's, we got rid of our equipment that test that because nobody ever comes in to do it. I think places like Leslie's will still do it. That's probably where I would say if you really wanted to check that level.
Okay.
So we drain it, we refill it. There's really not anything too special we have to do on there. Some tubs have a drain plug on the outside you can hook a garden hose to. You can always get a pretty inexpensive submersible pump to hook a garden hose to it.
Most of us use the
quick.
pump. I've seen the sump pump a lot.
Yeah.
Do you guys use the sump pump?
I just bought it. I mean, I don't know how to.
We'll show you. We'll show you a sump pump. It's just faster getting the water out.
Yeah, super easy, super fast. And when we talk about anything of these sanitizers that had EPA approval, it's not going to hurt anything, even if a little bit got into the lake or something like that. I know we probably want to try to avoid that. But EPA approvals mean that it's safe for the environment too when it comes time to drain these products. So easy enough to drain. The only things that you could do occasionally that I would do, especially since it's not you guys using the hot tub all the time. This isn't every time you drain it and refill it, but there are products called Purge, usually referred to as Purge products. Could be called Jet Clean or something like that, which you would run through the tub before you drain it. These, especially out here, I could see it being more. I try to do this once a year.
Wait. Are you doing that through the filter? What do you mean run through it?
You pour it in. The way most of them work, most of them are similar. You would pour it into the water before you drain it. So the old water in there, put this in there. You typically want to remove your filter, head pillows, and those directions are always on the labels.
Okay.
But you would run it with the jets on for about 15 minutes. It's going to turn into a big bubble bath. Then you let it set for about 15 minutes with the jets off. And then you drain it, and just even with like a wet rag, nothing special, just wipe down because you are going to get that foam building up. But it's going to really break down anything that's kind of built up inside the lines, stuff they call biofilm, that really builds up in the plumbing of the hot tub that you can't see or get to. This will really break that down. That's why I say at home, I try to do it, and usually I recommend it at home about once a year. If you know you've had a couple cases, maybe right in a row of guests just kind of abusing it, not taking care of the hot tub. It's gotten real nasty. That when it's that time to drain, there might be something to consider too. Just because if it did get real nasty, we don't want that stuff to, and we don't want to go through the trouble of putting new water in it, and then so much got left in the plumbing, and then you're struggling with the same thing over and over. So that's a good product sometimes. Things I'm left with, and I try to grab anything that I could possibly talk about. One is something to clean the covers with, just to keep them clean. But anything really too special on there. But try to use something outdoor, something not too harsh. It even says cover protector. Covers don't typically wear down to where they just fall apart. It's gonna get heavier and heavier the older it is. Kind of hard to keep guests from setting on them. But if somebody sets on this, stands on this, and breaks that foam, it's going to absorb water, and these covers are going to get heavy. And that's usually why people replace covers. The only other thing is spa cleaner for the inside. Have to go to normally, it's not too nasty. If the water stayed pretty clear, when you drain the water, you can just wipe it out with a wet rag. If you really did want to scrub it with a chemical to get it really clean when the water is drained out of it, you got to make sure you use something that's not detergent based. Because again, if you fill it back, if you clean it with it like Windex and fill it up, you're going to have a big bubble bath, and it's going to be hard to get it out of there because you clean that whole hot tub with it. So, again, go to a pool or spa store, find a cleaner that, I think 303, which is sold at like Home Depot and stuff, as far as just a cleaner to wipe it down, I don't think you have to be too careful other than make sure it doesn't have detergents in it. It's detergent based. you're going to get a lot of bubbles. It's going to be hard to get out. So make sure it's a non-detergent type cleaner to wipe it down.
Thanks. That makes sense.
I think that's
it.
all I've got, unless there's questions.
No,
but
I have a few questions. Okay, so this is about winterizing and using a hot tub through the winter. Okay, so does running the hot tub through the winter cause significant damage or shorten the lifespan of the unit?
So it's actually the other way around. That hot tub is meant to run all the time, and running continuously is going to be better. We can try to winterize a hot tub. There is a lot of plumbing to this hot tub. I think if they say there's 30 jets in a hot tub, which is, some these days, I mean, they get close to 100 on some of them, but say 30 jets, they say it's like 900 feet of plumbing or something. It's something crazy.
Wow.
Because, there's plumbing all through this. I mean, if you took this apart, took the foam out, there's just pipes hanging everywhere. So to get all that water out, and a lot of them are literally just hanging. So you've got this U shape, and that water just sits right in the middle of the bottom there. It's hard to get all that water out. Even if you have a drain plug and you drain it, you take an air compressor and you blow all the lines out, which is essentially what you'd have to try to do. And even if you took the extra step of putting like an RV antifreeze or a pool antifreeze and some plumbing, it's not going to get everywhere. It's just impossible these days with how many jets are in hot tubs and how much plumbing. So if you do that, if you do drain it and leave it empty and try to do that, there's still always a risk of something freezing and cracking. If you leave the hot tub going, even if you turn the temperature down to cut down energy costs, turn down to 80 degrees or something, that water still stays warm. The tub's going to automatically circulate a couple times a day. Some tubs have something that circulates all the time on the hot tub. But you're going to get some movement of water. It's not going to freeze up on you and crack. Even if power went out for a reasonable amount of time, I know, a few years ago, I know it just happened in other places of the country, but where you go weeks without power, that's a different situation. A day or two without power, even if it's full of water, isn't going to be a problem. It takes to freeze. But that's also why we kind of want to make sure like the filter hasn't gotten clogged. Have somebody. If we're talking where we can't look at the hot tub for months, then it might be something where you got to weigh the risk of draining it versus the risk of something happening. But it is typically better to leave the tub up and going. So
it's made to run all weather conditions, more or less.
Yes.
Obviously, probably not extreme, but still. Okay. Another question I have. So when we drain a tub, the heat up time is a long time, and some hot tubs are different. Is there parts you could get that would increase the heat up time of the water?
And
like a heat pump
are all the hot tubs? No, are they all on a 220 electrical setup?
They're not.
Okay. So 110 is where you're going to struggle with the most. That's one of the biggest differences between a 220 and a 110. 110 hot tubs, they're running about a fourth. The heater's running at about a fourth of what the 220 is. So 110 is going to take a lot longer to heat up. And it all just depends on what the temperature outside and everything is, how big the hot tub is, on how long it's going to take to heat. But 110s are just going to take longer, and there's really nothing you could add to it unless you converted it. A lot of hot tubs, not all, I can't say for every brand. A lot of hot tubs are convertible, where if you did convert it to 220, if that was an option, the heater would then heat at, it goes from 1,000 kilowatts to 4,000 kilowatts.
So it's a big jump.
Is how quickly it's going to heat up. Even at 220, I mean, if it's, last week when it's single digits, it's still going to take a little bit. But even on single digits, you can still get multiple degrees an hour, where with a 110, you're maybe getting 1 or 2.
So I know that some hot tubs have a heat pump versus a heater. Is that going to be a difference for heat time?
I'm not familiar with hot tubs with heat pumps. So a lot of that will depend on, I guess, like BTUs and how much it's.
Okay. How much? Okay.
So if you
Good
get a
answer.
110 hot tub, then even if it's up to operating temperature and it was cold outside like it was a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, if it's being used and that covers off, the temperature is going to drop quicker than it would be at a 220.
It will. So yes, on any 110 hot tub that exists, when you turn the jets on, the heater shuts off. It
Oh,
doesn't
does
pull enough electricity to run both at the same time. A 220, the heater's still going to run while you're in it with the jets on, so you'll still get some continuous heat while using it. Now, I mean, if you're in there a long time, you're still going to get some temperature drops, but it will still continue heating while you're in it. A 110 is not going to start heating until you turn those jets off, and then it will kick back. So
We've had
that's-
an issue with guests that were here that they would get in, and I guess I guess if you hit the temperature up and then the jets or something, maybe it's just cutting heat off of it. But it would seem to throw it in econ mode.
Yes.
So then they would always say, well, it's not heating up fast enough. Yeah. And they're in there with the cover off. It's 10 degrees outside. It's a 110 amp, and they're also trying to run the jet, so it's going to drop your
It's an either or.
4 to 97, 30 minutes. When it's that cold outside.
That'd be great if you could do a short, like 30-second video on switching from economy to sleep to regular.
Someone,
Because it's unbelievably confusing to try to figure that out.
Every hot tub can be a little different.
yeah, do those modes matter? Or
It
like,
does. So most hot, so again, every hot tub's different. Some hot tubs don't have those settings. They're just one setting and that's it. It is common, kind of traditional. Frankly, a lot of hot tubs use similar equipment from a brand that makes those control pads. And there's sleep, standard, and economy. And it's one of the things, I might not look like it. I've worked at Watson's for over 18 years. It's one of the things I've always hated is those modes. Standard mode is the mode you should keep it in. Economy mode is going to run your hot tub 20 degrees less than what you have it set at. Don't know why you would want that. I mean, maybe again, if you're going out of town, you're not going to be at the hot tub for a long period of time. But yes, and it's easy to accidentally, because it's usually like temperature up or lights, temp settings, something to change it. So people get in there pushing buttons to get the tub to work, and they accidentally change it.
Yeah, and we found that we get bad reviews if we live by reviews out here. So if they're the ones messing it up, not knowing it, we even have in our book, don't touch it, just leave it alone. Just don't touch it. Is there a way you can like bypass that where you can't do it?
Unfortunately, there's not. But yes, if they send it in the
we'll design a mount.
If you got to set
Design a mount with a key.
It's going to stop heating because it's going to let it get down. It gets set at 100. It's going to let it get down to 80.
Great.
I mean, I get that call even from people at their houses because they accidentally do it. They don't know it. I mean, that's the first thing. A hot tub's not heating up. It's at 80 degrees. Well, if it's 30 outside, it's heating because it's at 80. So, but it's stopped. So that's
Standard mode. Standard mode's the best.
Yeah.
Don't really. The other ones aren't really important.
But the problem is it's something like which one of the buttons will hit in jets.
Yeah.
So it's a real common thing for them to hit these two things, and they do it accidentally.
We
They
just tell
do
them
it a
to
lot.
not touch
Well,
it.
And we
I
tell them never to hit two buttons at the same
we're gonna design a sign. We can design a sign that we put right on the hot tub.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
as long as it's checked.
I don't
prior
even mind
to
if you put like, I mean, you could put like Watson. I mean, you don't have to put it specifically. I mean, you can. We're open on Saturday and Sundays. Now, if they do it at 8 o'clock at night, nobody's gonna be able to answer their questions. But I mean, if you want them to have us call us, with questions, or that you can't answer, hot tub questions, call Watson's at this number. I'm fine with that.
That's a great idea. We'll do that.
But it's, we can usually walk it through. The hard thing is there's hundreds of brands, and it can be just a little bit different on each one. I know anybody at our store.
I mean, is it in combination of where like they have to hit the temperature button? It seems that's the major.
It's
thing.
temp or jets. It's your
Either
choice.
jets or lights or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either,
If you just tell them don't touch the temperature.
yeah.
I don't know if that's like. A
Well, it's
combination
temp or jets.
Yeah,
We have to
if you
explain that.
like tape something over the temperature button or something and you can stay at the one. But it's usually a temperature and then another button, like temp lights, temp
Well,
jet.
they can't see it if it's nighttime.
Yeah.
So they're just the jets go off. They're like, turn the jets back on.
I know.
That's when
I think it's. I can definitely see where that's frustrating for you guys.
All the time.
Just say it's not working any good.
I get that straight from where at somebody's house, so I can definitely see it where it's a guest just doing it, and then all of a sudden, it's there. Unfortunately, I don't think I have a good answer for you.
No, we'll figure it out. That sounds like we'll figure it out. Any questions with the Zoom group? Anybody have anything else? Hey, I think I'd give a round of applause for everyone at home for Steve here, and thanks for coming out. We're going to send a recording of this video, and you guys have a good day.
Yeah, just say any questions you have, just call us at Watson's. You can ask for me, but all our sales team is fully trained pretty elaborately on chemicals and hot tub care. We have a full service department that's always there during the week. Doesn't have you don't have to buy the hot tub from us. So any questions, just give us a call.
Sweet.
Hey, I'm sorry.